Hello, for this episode of CarTalks, I want to get a little bit more technical. I know here lately it's been more high-level career stuff, but I did want to add in some technical talks here and there about kind of what I'm doing and what I think and that sort of thing. But so what I want to talk about today is Pester. So if you're not familiar with Pester, it's PowerShell's testing framework. And it's one that I wrote a book on that I'm very familiar with, and I love, and I now use every day. But what I'm going to be talking about is not necessarily going to be related directly to Pester. It's more about software testing and testing in general in software development and DevOps and that sort of space. So after I wrote the Pester book, I honestly didn't do a lot with Pester for a while. It had probably been 4 or 5 months since I had done any sort of Pester work after I had wrote that book and got it all updated, because honestly my job role had changed. I don't work at the full-time job anymore, and I'm a business owner now, and there's a lot of different responsibilities that come with that. But here recently I decided to start writing some Pester tests again for something that I had never even really considered. It was about, I wrote Pester tests to test essentially my entire business. It's still not done yet by any means, but it's a good example of what you can do with a framework like that. And the Pester test, that the suite that I'm building now is basically just testing every piece of the whole backend infrastructure that makes TechSnips works, and to makes this not only the platform that you see on TechSnips.io, but also coordinating with sponsors, with clients, different content needs, subscriber requests, contributors, the courses that we're going to be doing fairly soon. There's just a lot of logistics in the background that have to be done, and I decided to start writing some Pester tests for it. And I sought out just starting to build these tests, and because I needed to do this because there was just so many moving parts. Unfortunately, right now there's 3 different platforms, data sources where all these snips exist, and I needed to sync between all of them. Not the best situation, but I needed to get a handle on what I had first before I was actually able to worry about migrating to some other kind of platform. And I thought it was just going to be a day or two. It's been a weekend, and all I've been doing is writing Pester tests. Now, granted, that entire week has not been just writing the tests. I could have probably tested everything that I wanted to test within a few days, 2 or 3 days probably. But it's been taking this long because of my approach to how I approach coding and problem solving in general. It's a problem. It's a problem that I have that I know that I need to work on. But it's all about, I started out writing the tests and I just start coding immediately. I don't hardly do very much planning whatsoever. I don't do I just want to get started immediately. And I get started halfway through and I realize, okay, the way I've been structuring these tests are definitely not the way that I can do this to make this a more efficient test suite. So I start again. I've rewritten them 3 times now, and I think I've finally gotten the right methodology to where I can structure these tests. But this would have completely eliminated those first 2 times if I would have just planned out, okay, all the attributes, everything that should be, the state that everything should be when, and that sort of thing. So that's one thing about testing in general. Start out with a plan first. Define everything down to the most granular detail that you possibly can. Because you could just mix and match text. If you're just going to write an outline of what you want to test, you could just copy and paste and move around text as easy as you can. But once you get into code, you can get all those dependencies related to everything else. It gets a little bit more difficult, obviously. So that's another one thing that I learned. Another thing that I've been sort of grappling with is my OCD tendencies to make sure that everything is right. You know, us as humans, we feel good if we can have a checkbox there and we check it off, regardless of what it is. You know, I've read lots of productivity books that talk about people building checklists because they've already done the task. They build the checklist just to check the task off. You know, I mean, in the long run, ridiculous. It doesn't matter. It's a fruitless effort, and it doesn't really matter anything. This is what I've been seeing with my most recent foray into writing these pester tests, is that because I want all the tests to come back green, I want to test everything and make everything standardized and everything exactly the same. I want all the tests to come back green. But if, let's say, 1,000 tests come back green and then a few come back red, then I look at them and I notice that the failed tests, honestly, they don't matter at all. The state that they're in, it does not matter if the test failed at all to the long run of, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish. But since it's red, I spend an inordinate amount of time structuring the test and building the test and fixing all those little pieces that are red just to see them green, just so I don't have to go down through and add in a bunch of exceptions. Now there's some good things about this. You know, there's some positive things about making sure you have a standardized methodology, making sure you treat everything the same, eliminating the exceptions, and just good general coding practices. But in this case, it just didn't work out. You have to, I think I originally had some just architectural problems, because I would have these few exceptions in my test that didn't really fit the mold, but instead of adding in, you know, an exception here and there, which I just hate one-off exceptions like that, then I went back and I would try to re-architect the next level, redesign the way this one test worked, and then I would get frustrated because, okay, the design of this test does not match the schema or the design of this other test, and it would just drive me crazy. And that's another thing that took me so long, because I wanted to make all the tests standardized, pretty much the same, I could able to add and remove tests as I want, instead of just, putting a bunch of static blocks in there like that. So those are the few struggles that I've had, and I think right now I can finally feel me being okay with the architecture that I've chosen to build these tests out. And if you're like me and my personality, I couldn't just let it go. Whenever I start on a project that I care about and I want to succeed, I can't just let it go. It's more of an OCD thing. And whenever I do let it go before it's done, it's that completion compulsion. I've heard it called completion compulsion. If I'm not satisfied with the outcome of a project, I will do whatever it takes, however much time it takes, to complete it to my satisfaction. My satisfaction is a pretty relative term. It just, at some point you just feel good about it. Okay, you feel internally satisfied that, okay, these tests are built the way I want. They can easily be managed over time easily. They're not frail or fragile. Same thing with coding. But I've kind of went off topic and went a lot of different ways in this CarTalks, and I didn't really have a specific kind of theme in mind, but I did want to talk about how my more recent foray into writing these pester tests and the struggles that I've had, and how much longer that has taken me to write these tests than I would normally expect, and kind of reflecting and looking back over what that experience has kind of been like. I can see a lot of ways that I could have improved the process, and maybe if I start something like this again, maybe I'll learn from it, and maybe me talking about my mistakes and my struggle will help you out as well.